Manifestation. It's a word that has exponentially grown in usage over the past decade. Before, use of any form of that word was limited to those who studied the spiritual arts seriously. The other scenario in which it often appeared was the concept of manifest destiny in American history. This is a concept that most of the American populace understands broadly, without a deeper and more literal comprehension of its component words. Nowadays, the word is used ubiquitously within different spiritual communities, specifically the New Age community, where it has become a central theme in practices and teachings aimed at personal growth and enlightenment. It's also made its way to the general populace and is becoming more and more mainstream. A quick peek at the Google search trends for the word manifest shows how quickly it's exploded. Up until September of 2018, its relative popularity, measured by how often it was searched for or discussed in mainstream and spiritual circles, was incredibly low. However, as you can see, it then spiked toward the end of 2018, spiked again during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, and then exploded throughout 2021 and 2022. As of January 2025, when this article was written, it was back down to its pre-2018 levels. Although your average person now has a general understanding of what it means, which was not necessarily the case in 2018, fewer and fewer people are searching for it. Is it just a trend? A fad? If it were a truly spiritual practice, and so many have been successful in creating their so-called dream lives, why hasn't its popularity continued to grow? Is spirituality itself a trend? That question is an entirely different article. Let's stick with manifestation for now. If you search Google for manifestation, you'll get a plethora of results in the form of YouTube videos, blog posts, and sales pages for manifestation coaches. Before moving forward, it's important to state this disclaimer that this is not an attempt to defame or undermine the integrity of individuals involved in this kind of work, whether through coaching, content creation, or other mediums. It's also important to clarify that this is not an assertion that manifestation isn't real or doesn't work. There are plenty of true stories of people having manifested their desires. In fact, the vast majority of people have experienced something manifesting that left them in awe. Otherwise, it would have never exploded in popularity like it did. As with any industry, there are always scam artists, snake oil salesmen, and those primarily focused on making a quick buck, even if doing so causes them to abandon their integrity. That said, the vast majority of people in this space genuinely want to help and actually have experience with successful manifestation, along with plenty of raving clients and success stories. However, it is important to address a very key omission in their work. It's obviously impossible to comb through every published work on this topic. It's possible that this omission was actually mentioned in a work that wasn't a part of this research. However, through years of study and research on this topic, this concept that will be shared shortly has not come up once. Let's first start with standard manifestation advice. The wording is generally quite different depending on who you ask, but it generally involves a set of practices where an intention is set along with the emotion that is supposed to be felt when the desired manifestation becomes a part of reality. Some examples of these practices include writing or speaking affirmations, creating affirmation audio, hypnosis, elaborate vision boards, or even vision videos, writing a check with the amount of money you want to manifest on it, creating a list of the attributes of your dream partner, and the list goes on and on. When it comes to the emotion, the standard wisdom is to feel gratitude. After all, if you opened the mail to find a legitimate check with your name on it for $1 million, why shouldn't you feel grateful? Many who teach manifestation rightly say that this is the most important part of manifestation. If you can't feel yourself with that which you want to manifest, it won't manifest. Again, there are plenty of people out there teaching and coaching these concepts. Many of them make their money from YouTube ad revenue, courses, coaching, books, webinars, and many other streams of revenue. There is no shortage of this information around us. If manifestation is as simple as doing these exercises while feeling the emotion of gratitude, why do so many people have trouble manifesting? If you scour the internet, you'll see plenty of stories of those who tried many of these techniques after watching videos, purchasing courses, reading books, and shelling out thousands of dollars on coaching. In fact, it wouldn't be a stretch to apply the 80-20 rule here and say that 80% of the manifestation success out there comes from 20% of the people who engage in this path of study. This is likely the explanation in the drop in popularity of the concept as a whole. Many teachers on this topic would usually suggest that the person struggling to manifest often just needs to feel more grateful, or that they're not keeping their desired manifestation front of mind. Others would say that they just need to trust and believe more. Another common response is, there's something blocking you, you need to find it and let go. On the surface, none of this is genuinely bad advice. Again, most of this is generally well-intentioned. That said, we are now finally going to address the core concept, missing from the vast majority of the manifestation teachings that come up. And this is what blocks so many people from getting what they want in life. Can you truly, fully, and unconditionally love yourself without that which you desire? The true secret to manifestation is unconditional love. And while that sounds like quote-unquote just another teaching, truly understanding and embodying love is arguably among the most challenging endeavors in our existence, especially when it comes to loving yourself. It's not something that can be learned by watching a couple of YouTube videos, paying a few $100s for a course, reading dozens of books, or even months of expensive coaching. Embodying unconditional love is an endeavor that takes years, decades, and even lifetimes to understand. To quote Carl Jung on this topic, to love someone else is easy, but to love what you are, the thing that is yourself, is just as if you were embracing a glowing red-hot iron. It burns into you, and that is very painful. Manifestation and spirituality almost always go hand in hand when it comes to the teachings around it. Those who teach it often say that the soul's desire and purpose is to expand, so the desire to manifest is a natural one. This is absolutely not untrue. That said, what's often not addressed is how many people unconsciously get into manifestation teachings as a method of spiritual bypassing their lack of that which they want to manifest. Whether that's money, their dream home, a partner, etc., has created some sort of perceived lack of wholeness within them. By attempting to get something to fill that void, they don't have to feel into that emptiness. They believe that they can get around it by attempting to fill it with their object of desire. Therefore, they cannot unconditionally love themselves without that which they want to manifest, which ultimately results in an unsuccessful manifestation attempt. Another aspect of unconditional love that's misunderstood is that it's supposed to feel good. It's supposed to feel warm, fuzzy, soft, delicious, sweet, and whatever other positive attributes are associated with it. However, unconditional love means that You also love yourself even when you are feeling a difficult emotion. The love is not unconditional if you can only love yourself when you are happy, but not when you are feeling guilt or shame. Many people avoid feeling these feelings by simply telling themselves and others that they are fine, losing themselves in things, or dissociating deep into their heads and out of their bodies. This is where the aspect of feeling good as an aspect of manifestation may also be misguided. For example, for some people, gratitude may work fine if they don't hold a lot of negative emotional charge around a specific desire. For example, if someone wants to manifest a new job while they already have a job, it's more likely to come to fruition for them as opposed to someone who is out of a job and is desperately looking for one. That said, when someone gets into this world, it's likely that there's a very deep perceived deficiency that wants to be addressed. Trying to feel a higher emotion when there's a deep and negatively charged emotion around that perceived deficiency is a textbook example of spiritual bypassing. You can't choose your feelings, only how you respond to them. Imagine you are someone who has been poor your whole life. You were poor growing up, your parents were poor, your grandparents were poor, and this poverty went back generations. It's almost certain that money is a very loaded topic for you and causes you to feel a lot of fear, guilt, and shame. Now imagine you come home one day and there's a pile of cash on the table in your house. What's your honest first reaction? It's definitely not going to be one of gratitude. In fact, you'll likely feel suspicious if it came from a nefarious source or if it's counterfeit. But, for the sake of argument, let's assume it's been fully vetted to be clean and that some wealthy man you spoke to the other day wanted to give it to you as a gift because you lit up his day. Does this make you feel better? Possibly. But it's also very likely that those feelings of fear, guilt, and shame will come up. You may think that you don't deserve this money and may go gamble it away or spend it irresponsibly. Why do you think so many lottery winners end up losing it all so quickly? To share another example, let's say you're a 30-year-old man who has never had a girlfriend. You've made plenty of attempts, only to have her tell you she's not interested or just sees you as a friend. You don't get any matches on dating apps. Women never approach or proposition you romantically. Meanwhile, you're watching all of your friends go on dates with beautiful women, get into relationships with them, marry them, and have families. To cope, you've distanced yourself from dating and have used pornography to cope with the lack of intimacy. With all this context, it's very likely that you have some very deep and entrenched negative beliefs around dating women and feel a degree of shame around the topic. Now imagine you're at the grocery store, minding your own business, and this absolutely stunning supermodel comes up to you and says, "I noticed you from across the aisle, and I think you're so incredibly handsome and want to get to know you. Can I have your number?" What's your initial reaction? Very likely not one of gratitude. It's more likely that you'll freeze, stutter, and overall feel incredulous. So if these two example individuals are unable to feel gratitude, are they never going to be able to manifest in the realms of money and love respectively? Again, unconditional love means loving yourself even when the ickiest of emotions come up. Going back to the example of the poor person, if he tried to visualize himself with a pile of cash to buy his dream home for the purpose of manifestation, those feelings of fear, shame, and guilt would come up. How can he apply unconditional love in this situation? He can feel the feelings and emotions fully through. Again, this is an incredibly difficult practice, especially if you spent your whole life running away from these emotions. However, it's also important to note that the more he can consciously feel through these emotions, the less powerful they will be, as unconditional love will gradually replace them, as it is a much more powerful emotion. This resistance to feeling these painful emotions will often come up first, which is what will get in the way of the manifestation coming to fruition. Because if it does come to fruition, he will have to feel these emotions, something that he's trained himself to avoid doing. The same applies to the man who can't get a girlfriend. So does that mean if these two people just sit at home and go through these manifestation techniques and feel through these emotions, they'll be able to manifest their desires? It's possible, but unlikely. Why? Because their mind will not allow them to be triggered in a way that will force them to feel these emotions. Safety is one of the top priorities of the mind. It will not allow them to replicate a scenario to the point of having to feel the emotions that they've been trying to escape. This is where action comes in. Because taking action puts them out in the world where, according to the mind, they are not safe when these triggers come up because it is not in control. Of course, they can use their time at home to practice what it feels like to truly feel through these emotions so that when they get out into the world, they understand the mechanism. In the poor man's example, this would require applying for jobs and interviewing for companies that pay significantly more than what he's making now. For the single man, this means actually approaching women he finds attractive and being clear with his romantic intentions. In both scenarios, the emotions will be triggered and they will have to feel through them. And the more they're able to feel through these emotions, the less powerful those emotions will be. And the less powerful they are, the more space is created within them to manifest. With all of that said, it's important to reiterate that manifestation is not as esoteric as many make it out to be and is actually quite practical. That said, it's incredibly important to understand the mechanics at a very deep level. In addition, the vast majority of those who teach manifestation have your best intentions at heart. That said, they may not be at the point where they've fully grasped the concept of unconditional love. Be careful to verify that they are teaching you spiritual expansion and not spiritual bypassing. Look for signs of authentic guidance, such as encouraging you to confront and process difficult emotions, rather than avoiding them with surface-level positivity or quick fixes.